Hello everyone, it's Mindy from My Creative Scoop and I'm back with another tutorial for Ellen Hudson. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how I made this adorable card. We are using the stamp set called Teacher Lady by the leading ladies from Ellen Hudson, and I've also incorporated the Reveal Wheel from Lawn Fawn and a couple of other little stamps and dies from different companies. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create our Distress Oxide background. I have a piece of cardstock from 5.5 by 4 1/4. We're going to be trimming this down with a die, so we're not going to be using the whole thing, but pretty much the majority of it. So I have my shaded lilac, Distress Oxide, spun sugar, and picked raspberry. I'm going to take and start with the lightest color, my spun sugar. And I'm going to take my blending brush and get some ink on there. And then I'm just going to add some color here and there. Since this is a lighter color, some of the two other dark colors are a little bit darker, so they will cover it up. But I do want to have this lighter color kind of off in the background and in some areas so we have a nice contrast. So there's not really any rhyme or reason why and where I'm adding any color. I just want to get a little bit kind of everywhere. All right. Then we're going to take the shaded lilac and do the same thing. Get some ink on here. And I'm not gonna press very hard because I want to get a nice blend that's going into some of that spun sugar, but again, we're just adding a little bit of color here and there. So I'm really not even pressing hard with the brush because I want to get a nice blend. I don't want to put so much ink down where it's really hard to blend out. Okay, so we have enough ink down. Now we're going to go back with the picked raspberry. So we're going to go back with the pink brush and repeat. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go right where I have some of the pink that's already down on our card, and I'm going to just try to blend that in, but still try to leave a little bit of that lighter pink in there somewhere so that way it has that contrast. We'll add a little bit more right here. And then let's go ahead and go back with that spun sugar just so we can get a little bit of a better blend and pull out some of that picked raspberry and make it so it's just a little bit softer. So I'm really liking the way that it's coming out. It's not as dark as my sample that I have, but it's very nice and soft and kind of dainty. So I'm gonna go back and add a little bit more of the purple, and I'm gonna tell you what I normally tell my students when I'm teaching in stores. When you're following a tutorial, you don't have to continue going as much, or if I'm doing a second layer and adding more color or adding another color that you don't like, you don't have to do that. You can always just stop when you're happy with what you have. So if you like it like this and you like that really soft, light those tones that you've created, stop. You don't have to add that extra coat, but I'm gonna go ahead and add an extra coat. So take a little bit more of that shaded lilac. I just want to add a little bit more purple. So it's nice and blended. We don't have any really white showing. It's got color all over the place. Let's add a little bit more. Okay, and I'm actually gonna go back with my sponge sugar again. Just a little bit more. Let's wipe off this excess here so we don't pick up any more of that purple ink. So I'm just gonna go back over kind of right in between the purple and the pink just to get a better transition between the colors so it blends. All right, okay, so that looks good. Now let's go ahead and get ready to do the little bit of stamping on our background. Okay, so before we do our stamping, I'm going to take a water bottle, and I don't like spraying directly on because I think it adds way too much water all at once. So I just usually spray some on my fingertips and then do a couple of little flicks. And then we'll take our paper towel. And you don't want to smudge it, you just want to lay it down and kind of press gently so that way you get all those water droplets and you don't have a big smudge of water going everywhere. So now we'll make sure this is nice and dry. And dry off our mat. And then we can go ahead, take our block, and we're going to be using the shaded lilac and the picked raspberry. We're going to go ahead and add some little hearts and the love sentiment all over our background. So the little hearts I'm using, this is from the Lawn Fawn birthday before and afters. I'm going to be using this heart right here, and then later on we're going to be coloring this present to add onto our leading lady in her arm. You can see right here she's holding it in her arm. So we'll be using those two stamps from the before and after birthdays. So I'm going to take my little heart and add it to my block, and we're going to take the picked raspberry and we're just going to stamp this all over our card. So I try to go in a little pattern so that way it has a little bit of pattern to it. That way they're all a little bit, you know, separated from one another, and I'm keeping all my hearts. Sometimes when I stamp backgrounds, I like to flip my paper all around so I have different directions, but in this case I did keep them all going in the same direction. And you always want to make sure when you're stamping a pattern onto a background, or even if it's not a pattern, if you're just stamping, you know, sporadically all over the paper, you always want to make sure you stamp off the paper too so it looks like that pattern is continuing. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take off this heart, and I'm going to get out the Mondo Amaryllis stamp set, and I'm going to be using the love sentiment. And we're going to be stamping this in pink and in the purple. So in the shaded lilac and the picked raspberry onto our background. So we'll go ahead and do the pink first. So the way that I tried to do it on on my sample card was wherever it was purple in the background, that's where I stamped the pink. And wherever it was pink, I stamped the purple. So there's 3 little loves there. And then we're gonna take the shaded lilac, ink it up, and add pink or add the purple love where we have the pink. So just soft and subtle. Gives it a little something extra to our background. Okay, so now we are finished with this part. We're gonna set it aside and let's go ahead and start all of our die cutting. So actually we're gonna be using this background from Sunny Studio Stamps. It's called, what is it called? Frilly Frames. So we're gonna use this die and cut out some pink cardstock that's gonna go behind this piece here. So we're gonna be die cutting that, and then we're gonna take the reveal wheel, the Lawn Fawn Reveal Wheel. So this is the main part, and we're gonna be using this for the background here that we've created. And we also have to cut out all of the parts to make our reveal wheel, the circle part and this circle part. So I'm going to show you how to put that together along with that little arrow. We're going to be cutting that out in white. So let me go die cut all that stuff and then we can start putting our card together. Okay, so I have all of the pieces for the card base that we're going to be putting together. So for the reveal wheel, if you see up here, I don't know if you could see it, if it's going to be hard. You could see the little line right here, and then there's this circle. So in order for the window for the reveal wheel, you take this piece here and you line it up. And you could also do this at the same time as you actually die cut, but I'm not going to be using this die. So it would line up here and you would run it through the die cut machine. And it's going to cut out this little window so that way it can, you know, it could turn and you could reveal all the different sayings. But I'm going to be using this little word bubble die that is actually from Heffy Doodle, and I know that the reveal wheel also has an add-on for this. I just don't have that, so I try to work with what I have. So the die, and you know, it starts right about here, so I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it, and I'm gonna remove this and die cut my little word bubble out right here. So that's what's gonna have the different sayings inside of it, so it looks like she is saying it or thinking it instead of the little window that comes with the reveal wheel. So let me go ahead and die cut this out so we can put our reveal wheel together. Okay, so it's all cut out. It's going to end up going on top of here, but first we have to stamp our sentiments on the part of the wheel that turns. So in order to do that, I have a little template here from Lawn Fawn that helps you lets you stamp it straight. So I'm just going to be using the little squares since that is the closest to the shape that I'm using, and I know it's going to fit right in that window. So I'm just going to set this on here and let's stamp one. So I'm using the Reveal Wheel Family and Friends sentiment. So I'm going to be doing these square ones right down here. So let's go ahead and stamp the You Are Great. We'll stamp that right in the middle. So before I stamp the rest of them, I want to move this out a little bit so I can make sure that it's straight, it's right up in the corner, and I could see part of the reveal wheel. That's fine, it works great. So let's go ahead and continue stamping all of those sentiments. So I'm just going to turn this, make sure that it's lined up with my paper. You could add a little piece of tape if you want. And let's go ahead and swap out that sentiment. So now we're going to go ahead and use the I really like you. Get that nice and inked up and stamp it in the center. And the next one we're going to use is Sending Hugs. And the next one we're going to use is You Make Me Smile. It's perfect little sentiments, sayings for a Valentine's card. Oops, that's not lined up. There we go. All right, so now what we're gonna do is assemble the little mechanism to make it turn so that way we can stick it on our card. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this circle and we're gonna take this circle here. We're gonna stick them together and we're gonna take a brad and we're going to put it through where it opens in the front. And then we're gonna open it. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip this over and we're gonna add some foam tape or foam dots right around the brad. So that way this turns instead of this. So that way it'll keep it from moving on the card and will allow the other part to turn so we could see each of the different sentiments. Okay, so this is the piece of cardstock that this is going to stick to, but we want to make sure we get it exactly where we want it. So we're going to make sure we could see the sentiment here. And then I have my foam tape on the back and I'm going to remove that. And then we're holding it in place so that way we still see the sentiment, and then you're going to come above it so that way we can, and this is actually going to cover the stitching that's around that die. Okay, so we know that it's in spot and that's where it's going to fit on our card. So then we're going to go ahead and take some foam tape, put it on the back of this, or you could stick it on this, but you cannot get in the way of that turning mechanism. Otherwise it's going to get stuck and it's not going to turn right. So let's go ahead and apply our tape. Okay, so we have some foam tape on here. We'll remove that. And then we're going to take this and attach it to our card. And now it turns and you could see all of the different sentiments, and we're ready to put the rest of our card together. So let's take our card base, and again I love using foam tape. I love all that added dimension to the card. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply this background with foam tape and stick it on our card base. Okay, so it's all put together. It has some nice dimension, and now we are ready to, let's go ahead and add the little sentiment that I'm using here. This little I love you, it's from the new Heffy Doodle release, and I love the fact that it has the two different dies, the border die, which we're going to cut out in white, and then the pink die for the words, and I really love the way that looks, and it just really makes it pop. So let me go ahead and die cut those so we can attach them to our card. Okay, so here is the sentiment. Since that little tiny heart is so small and I hate to lose that and then have to re-die cut it again, so I always like to right when it comes through, use my tweezers and apply the center part of die cut image into the background, so that way it's already there and you don't have to worry about losing it. So I've already done that and glued it down, so then we'll go ahead and leave it until we finish coloring the image and die cut that out as well. So that way we can, you know, if you want to place it differently, or, you know, depending on how exactly you want to put down the words. So let's go ahead and get this stuff out to color our image. Okay, so I've stamped my image onto my Copic Express It blending card, and I've stamped it with my Memento ink. Again, this stamp set that I'm using is the Leading Ladies from Ellen Hudson. It's the Teacher Lady, and then the present is going to be from the Birthday Before and Afters. I'm going to be doing a sped up version of my coloring since this video is already a little bit longer, since I wanted to show you exactly how I was putting together my card. So I will list all the color combinations below so that way you know exactly what I'm using. So let's go ahead and start coloring. Okay, so our image is fully colored. I'm not doing the shoes because we're actually going to be cutting off part of the leg so that way it's a little bit lower. It's not the full image that's going to be on there. But we're going to go ahead and take a white gel pen and do a little bit of dots and little hearts on the present and just give it a little bit more decoration. So let's go ahead and grab a white gel pen. So I'm going to take the white gel pen and we're going to add a few little hearts. So since the present isn't very big, we're just going to kind of make almost like a V, like a thick V, so that way you can see that it's a heart. And of course there's going to be some areas that we're not going to be able to get to, but you want it to look like it continues. So I'm just going to add a couple little dots right along the edge, and then we're going to add a whole bunch of little dots all around just to give it a little bit of a sparkle. It kind of gives that sparkle effect over the color. And I'm not adding any on the ribbon. You can if you'd like, if you want to try it, but I just like the way it looks, you know, just on the present. Okay, so these are ready to be die cut. Okay, so my image is die cut, and I love the way that this die cuts and makes it so it has that cut mark on the hand, so you can make it look like she's holding something. So in the present fits right there just perfectly. So just kind of tuck it in her arm, and it looks super, super cute. So let's go ahead and get back out our card so that way we can assemble everything and add all the little details. Okay, so I've added some foam tape right along the back side of our leading lady, the teacher, and we're gonna go ahead and place her on our card. So I want it to be where you could still see that little mark, so you gotta go over a little bit, make sure that the tape is not covering any of this white that's showing, so that way it still can move. So we'll stick that down here, and then we're gonna take our scissors, and I wanna cut it so you could still see the scallop. So I want it to be flush against the paper that we distressed. So I'm just gonna trim that off. Might have to go a little bit more. There we go. And then we're gonna go ahead and, it's so cute, figure out how we want our words. So the way that I did it in my sample card was put the I and the love next to each other, and then the U down below. So we'll go ahead and get the glue and stick that down. Make sure it's even. That's why I like using my adhesive. Anytime I'm trying to glue something down, I always use adhesive and not a tape runner. I'm not really a fan of it because then you can always have that quick second just to shift it and make sure that it's straight. All right, and then we'll take our little arrow, add a little bit of glue, and stick that right onto the pink cardstock down, so that way people know that they could turn that down. And then I took my Nuvo drops, let's see what color this is, Shimmering Rose, and I just added a little extra details all around. So anytime you use the Nuvo, I always like to kind of give a little squirt first, because sometimes it can give it's not so, it kind of spits at you because there's a little bit of air in there. So I'm just going to add a little bit of dots here and there. I like to add some big ones and a couple of small ones. And there you have it. Super cute card. I love the fact that I used all those different companies and how they can still, they coordinate. You really can get a lot more out of all of your stamps, when you mix and match them. So this was just, I had so much fun creating this card, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you have any questions about any of the Copic coloring or anything in general, go ahead and feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll make sure I pop on back over on the Ellen Hudson YouTube channel and answer them for you. Thank you again for watching, and have a wonderful day.